Imagine, as we see more and more devices that are adopting two cameras, imagine those devices could see us as well as we see them.
Oh my gosh.
How well could they serve us?
And in the fun startup area, I'm sitting with Han, who is the CEO of Lucid. If you're familiar with Lucid, they came out with a camera called the LucidCam, right?
That's correct.
And it's the world's first VR 180 3D camera. I had to look at my script because what does VR 180 mean?
So I mean, like, we started off thinking, how should a camera capture the world? And how would it be to capture it the same way like how our eyes capture it, which is peripheral vision and with 3D depth. And we created a 180 degree because that's how I can see. I don't see 360, I don't have eyes in the back. And it was very important to me that I was able to create an experience where you had so much depth that you felt like you are there when you are experiencing it. And so that's how we came up with VR 180 camera.
Well, speaking of depth, our viewers have a lot of technical questions for you regarding your product. So what is the camera's scanning range?
You know, for stereo camera, which has a baseline of around like eye distance, you can perform the best in 5 to 10 meters range. And that's the same for us human beings too. Like if we look further away, so for example, landscapes and stuff like that, we don't really see depth. It's just imaginary depth for us when we look very far away.
Our brain's just filling
Exactly.
in.
Our brain is trying to trick us, kind of telling us we see depth. But what we really see is, if you see in like, you know, in a radius of 5 meters, that's where we perform the best.
What are the minimum and maximum distances at which it can determine depth?
The minimum distance is like 1 meter because if you get closer than that, the same problem we have with our own eyes when you do this and your eye starts converging and you start seeing two fingers instead of one.
And getting dizzy.
Exactly. But like further away, you can go all the way up to 20 meters. But I think beyond 20 meters, that's where it becomes really tricky. And
is the camera meant to be used indoors or outdoors? I've seen it both, but what's it really used for? It
really depends, right? What application you are going after. Indoors is great because lighting is more controllable. Outdoors is fine too because, you know, there are a lot of sports, you know, enthusiasts who are taking our camera, put it on the chest, and then just go out there. But I do think like if you go outdoors and it's very dark, it becomes very challenging because, you know, if you have a fisheye lens, you know, bigger range of light you have to take in, it reacts very differently to low light situations. And so I don't recommend necessarily for people to go like in the middle of the night out there to shoot with the LucidCam.
But do you think there's a solution for that? Because I don't think there are many 180 cameras out there that are good in low light.
That's correct, yeah. So we still perform well in low light, and that's what we do primarily through software. And so that happens all on the camera itself, behind the scenes, which a user normally doesn't see.
And is the processing done in the cloud or on the edge?
The processing is done right now in the cloud, but we are shifting more and more to the edge depending on what kind of chip the camera will support. So we started developing our camera first on Qualcomm Snapdragon. And now a lot of Qualcomm Snapdragon chips are coming with the neural engine, and so we can also process on the edge as well.
What kind of technology are you guys using? Is it time of flight? Is it structured light, stereo only?
We do pure stereo.
Oh.
And you know, what most people don't understand is we have found a way how to use stereo for depth, and that was primarily by applying AI and machine learning to it. So we are really combining like computer vision and machine learning in order to achieve depth in an environment which is pure software driven. That means like no longer emissions of like lasers and then collecting it when it's come back. And the question on why we did it is because we looked at ourselves like, you know, we see depth very well. We can hit like a baseball when it's flying at whatever speed it is, and we can control cars at whatever speed, right? But we are not shooting out any darts out of ourselves, right? So why are cameras right now not capable of doing it? And so when you break it down is, all the stuff which happens for us is primarily happening in your brain, which is the incredible amount of processing which your brain does in real time. As chips are moving more and more to higher processing, a chip can now support it as well. And so you can break it down into 3 components, which is, you know, memory. We have seen balls or tables before, we know how tall they are, how far they are. Second, processing and you know, happening like in terms of understanding the environment and being trained in that environment. And then the third part is inference. That means like you can project pretty much, I can predict or I can assume that table will, or that ball will roll that fast.
So when you designed LucidCam, you built it with the human brain in mind.
Correct.
To mimic the human behavior.
Correct, exactly, yes. We wanted the LucidCam to perform as well as our own eyes. We wanted the user to have as less impact as possible. We don't want you to go back and sit another hour to fix things.
Right.
We wanted to get it done so the output right out of your camera is perfect for what you're doing.
So what is that process like? I take some footage outside, I want to put it on YouTube, for example. Walk me through what that looks like.
So you capture something, you save it, and then you can connect your phone, and then you can have our app, which uploads right into the whatever you want to upload it into.
So the stitching's already done in the camera. You don't need to do any of that in post.
Everything done on the camera.
What is the resolution of the camera?
Right now we have 2K per eye, so we can go up to 1920p per eye, and together, the entire image output you get 4K.
And what is the frame rate of the camera?
Right now we are looking at 30 frames per second. We can go all the way up to 45 frames per second. And why we haven't been able to achieve 60 is because the processing is just so intensive. And we were not able to really bring or combine the processing with 60 frames per second and still do it in real time.
At what rate is the depth information refreshed?
The depth information is actually happening in real time. That means like at the same frame rate like at your shooting. So that means like if you're shooting at 30 frames per second, we refresh at 30 frames per second the depth information as well.
How long does the battery last?
Depends on what you are trying to do, right? If you're just trying to record and just do normal stuff, right? The battery can last up to like, I don't know, 5 to 6 hours.
Okay.
But if you are starting to build in depth or more processing or whatever, that drains, of course, the battery much more, right? It's because we are leveraging the GPU a lot, and so we do a lot of processing in parallel to what you do and capture, and that can bring it down to like 3 hours to 4 hours.
What are the use cases in which depth information will be used?
So there are a lot of use cases right now for depth information, especially if you are looking to the market where camera resolution race is over. That means like, people are getting to 4K or they are getting to like 20 megapixel per camera, right? And for us, we don't see a difference anymore, because in order to see the difference between a 25 megapixel versus a 20 megapixel, you need a huge screen at home in order to project it, right?
Yes.
So I believe the future for cameras or for technology for vision base is software, because software takes your normal camera, which is, I don't know, 20 megapixel per eye, to the next level, which is, now you can do 3D reconstruction. Now you can do 3D capture. Now you can do 3D scanning. Now you can do, I don't know, facial recognition to whatever depth is required. That's what the camera can do as well. Imagine, as we see more and more devices that are adopting two cameras, imagine those devices could see us as well as we see them.
Oh my gosh.
How well could they serve us? In terms of how much they understand about us, and how well and how better can they fulfill our needs with what they do now.
When we think VR, most people think 360. You went with 180. First of all, what are some of the reasons that you did that? Because you said in the beginning, you're like, we don't have eyes in the back of our heads. And also, was there controversy, or do you think you will come out with a 360 version?
When I first started, it was in 2015, and we were the first ones to bet on 180, while the entire industry was looking at 360.
Everything was 360.
And it was really hard because everyone, like 99% of my friends or investors or people I meet, they just tell me like, you are wrong. Like 360 is the thing. Why are you not building 360? And the main reason why I decided to go the 180 route was for use cases. So I bought 360 cameras. I was a guy who shot 360. I had so many problems with it.
Yeah.
So, and just to explain a couple, right? Number one, I'm not a big selfie guy. So on 360, if I hold it here, I'm always on the camera. Okay?
I don't believe that.
And second, if I wanted to shoot like a movie and something like that, and I'm the director, I don't want to be in the movie. So I gotta hide somewhere behind like trees or bushes or boxes or whatever, and then like come back and then check my footage if it's good. And if it's not good, I go back and hide and restart it over again. Imagine how long time that takes me to create good content, because you don't see virtual reality content instantaneously. With 180, I had control. I had control the same way like normal digital cameras gave us control of framing images and pictures we found beautiful. And that's convinced me to like, hey, I want to go after that, I don't care if it works out or not, I want to build it for myself. And that's why we started. I started really with my co-founder to build a device which we wanted to build for ourselves, capture our own memories and just store them and like never show the world, until Google Cardboard came out and we were like, maybe we should share that, right? And that's how we started.
But is there any sort of industry pressure to go 360 or consumer pressure?
All the time. I mean, like there's no conversation where I talk to someone and 180 where the person said like, oh, so are you going 360 too? And I made the decision, no, I will not go 360 because we have a setup which allows 3 Lucid cams to be together. It's kind of a hack for us, right? We never pursued to build an entire 360 camera because we still believe 180 is the thing to go. And the industry has caught up with that too. Google has copied VR 180. Lenovo came up with VR 180 camera with their Mirage VR 180 camera. Yi now has their own VR 180 camera. Like everybody is now going after VR 180. And we have been pounding for the last 3 years on the table to get there. And so now we have more support and also validation of the market that this makes a lot of sense. So I do believe as an entrepreneur, you have to be a little stubborn sometimes, right?
Yes.
And I believe in creating a market as an entrepreneur, it's not about always following the big, the big way for everyone else.
So what's next for Lucid?
So we started already working with a lot of mobile phone makers to embed our technology. So we will be launching by the end of this year 3 to 4 products in mass production, consumer products which people will buy, millions in units being shipped, and our technology embedded. So we believe that as we saw the trend over the last couple of years from dual cameras now on mobile phones. If you pull out your mobile phone, right, the iPhone X, iPhone 7, since iPhone 7 has 2 cameras.
And now there's phones with 3 cameras.
Yes. And 300 million units of 2 camera mobile phones got shipped last year. And this year they're going to double and triple that, right? And then we see 2 cameras on drones. We start seeing 2 cameras on robots. We see 2 cameras now adopting onto laptops, tablets. Like there's so many things. We want to focus on the consumer side of where 2 cameras are adopting and how we can help them to be smarter.
And this conversation comes full circle because in the beginning we were talking about the processing power, the software behind your technology, and how that can be adapted to different devices. And what we've been finding here at MWC in Shanghai is there is a little emphasis on device hardware, but also the emphasis really is on software this year. I think people are finding out consumers don't want multiple devices. I have the VR camera, I don't carry it with me because I'd rather just carry my phone. I don't even have a big purse anymore. So now the industry is really taking note of that and saying, how can we use that technology from these devices and put it into just one? And that could be a mobile phone, which is what everybody carries.
Great point that you're bringing up about the software, because the margins of mobile phones are shrinking every year, right? Because they have to be price efficient, and they are putting more and more features into the phone. Now the people are not making any money on the phones they sell anymore. So how do you stack up? If you build more hardware in, it makes it even more expensive. But if you put more software in, you could take it to the next level without making it more expensive for the mobile.
Yes, and what's the beauty of this industry is the product cycle is so short that you can throw something in there. If people don't like it, take it out, try something else.
Exactly.
Right? A lot of experimentation.
Correct.
Awesome, great. Well, thank you so much, Han.
Thank you.
We look forward to what's next for Lucid and possibly having the technology in our mobile devices.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.